On the TradFi side of things, I think there have been two big events as far as NAV data, so net asset value data. And net asset value data is critical for fund usage, administration, and basically its existence on chain. So fund tokenization, I think, has moved forward significantly since we talked a few months ago. And from our point of view, we have put more and more NAV data, NAV data on chain, both in a testnet pilot setting with very large institutions like the DTCC, and in a mainnet production setting with very large institutions like Fidelity International and Signum and others. So I think what's really happened is the fund tokenization trend has accelerated, and because of the security and quality of the way that the Chainlink Oracle networks process and put data on chain, I think Chainlink has basically emerged as the preferred way to put NAV data on chain for tokenized funds to operate correctly. And what I'm seeing now is just a consistent stream of even more great tokenized funds that need both the NAV data and proof of reserves and other kinds of data. And also they will have and do have this liquidity problem where liquidity is split across multiple chains, with Chainlink being the only system that can provide them the data and the connectivity to the liquidity in a single system. And it's actually very important, and we found this to be true, more and more true, that the data and the value need to be tightly coupled. So as the value and the ownership right moves, the data is attached to it in an initial environment where it's created. But then the data has to stay attached to it as the value moves across multiple chains. And because Chainlink is the only system that puts in the data and has the ability to connect the ownership rights and the value across chains, at this point, from what I can tell, it's the only system that can allow the value and the data to move together in a tightly coupled way. So this has, as we kind of predicted and as we built the system to do this, it's become quite an important thing, because you don't just want to make an asset that works on one chain, you want to make an asset that works on all the chains that it ends up going to.
And I think there's some other partnerships that you were working on that I came across just from doing research. Can you share sort of more broadly who you've been in touch with, what types of financial institutions you've been partnering with, and are we going to see that continuing in the near future?
Yeah, so I think when we spoke in Dubai, I was just coming off a really long trip where I was in maybe the largest 4 or 5 financial centers of the world. So like London, Singapore, Hong Kong, Sydney, Dubai, and a few others. In all of those places, I would be meeting with central banks, the country's largest country exchange, the clearing and settlement depository of the country, the top 4 or 5 commercial banks, some of the larger asset managers. I think a lot of those conversations have now progressed towards something more real. And what I'm seeing is that the TradFi world is starting to launch more and more things on chain. For example, the Fidelity International tokenized fund that was launched last week, that's something that got put together pretty quickly for the TradFi world, like relative to how long it usually takes. So I'm seeing an acceleration. In terms of the specific folks that we announced with, I think there's been so many of these announcements at this point between banks and asset managers and a number of other large users that it's kind of hard for me to keep track. I think it's just going to keep picking up from here, in my opinion, because we've been the standard in DeFi for many years. Chainlink powers the majority of DeFi right now, and I think the quality of that standard and the fact that it's been operating on production for over 5 years successfully with high uptime, keeping the value safe, having now enabled over 12.5 trillion in US dollars in transaction value through the system, which does make Chainlink one of the most value processing systems in the whole blockchain industry. I think what I'm just seeing is a steady stream of more and more things going towards production rather than pilot or POC.
What are the next big milestones that you're working towards in, let's say, the upcoming 12 months? It's a bit difficult to sort of look further into the future than that in DeFi, but 12 months, what are the key milestones you're working towards?
I think more TradFi capital markets value on production, with Chainlink as a standard for both data and connectivity across chains. I think more and more DeFi protocols that do more advanced things using the various Chainlink protocols and systems for all kinds of data, computation, connectivity, the use of AI models, and all these other things. And then over the next 12 months, might be too soon, but one of the things I would be very excited about is having more and more DeFi protocols interact with TradFi and capital markets chains and systems and assets through the Chainlink standard. So the Chainlink set of standards around data, identity, connectivity really should underpin this Internet of Contracts, where in order for us to do a transaction, we need to agree on a price. We need to agree on a way to transmit value to each other. And if you're already on the Chainlink standard and I'm already on the Chainlink standard for transmitting price information to each other, transmitting value to each other, then it becomes it becomes seamless. It becomes quite easy for us to just transact. That's really the world that I'm particularly excited about, where you have a bunch of DeFi users, a bunch of TradFi users, all interacting with each other, or all agreeing on transactions using Chainlink price, all fulfilling identity requirements through Chainlink identity data, feeds and connections to existing identity providers. That's really kind of the world that would be the most exciting, that would start to emerge over the next 12 months. But I think we'll see more DeFi usage and more TradFi usage. And then beyond the next 12 months, I think we'll see more of that interacting on the Chainlink set of standards, which I think puts it in a position to be the underlying infrastructure of the Internet of Contracts across chains, across TradFi use cases, across DeFi use cases, and really forming this kind of lower level layer that makes all of this stuff work.
One of the terms that gets thrown around, left, right, and center at conferences like EthCC is, onboarding the next billion users. What do you think about that? How far away from it are we, and how pivotal is some of the work that Chainlink's doing in terms of creating the infrastructure in achieving that perhaps pipe dream of the next billion users?
So the next billion users is really the job of the application developers. And I think the next billion users will come from two categories of applications. One will be the DeFi public chain applications, which have a serious problem with their private key usage and how complicated it is still to deal with a private key as a user. And this is kind of the basic consumer problem of crypto still to this day, is that private keys are hard to deal with. And so people cede control of their private keys to various centralized exchanges, interfaces, or whatever. But basically, it's making the user experience of crypto as good or better than Web 2. So that's going to be on the public chain consumer retail side. I do think a very large amount of users, both in total value and individuals, will come from big asset managers, big banks, that many of them have millions of users, frankly, that have their life savings or all of their value in those institutions. Already that having an account at that institution will now be able to use that account to do crypto things. So the first category is the retail consumer using more DeFi, using more public chains, where the user experience around private keys really still needs to be improved. And then the other group will be the capital markets, TradFi users that many times might not even fully understand or care that they're using a blockchain-based asset or that they're getting their yield from a DeFi or a regulated DeFi protocol, but they will. But they will be a user of it. And I don't know from which of those two groups a larger percentage of those next billion users will come from, but I'm pretty sure that a significant percentage, a double-digit percentage, will be coming from both of them. That's basically where, I think what might end up happening is by total numbers, you might end up getting more individual people by the public chain, Web3, retail community side. But by total value, you might end up getting more total value for less users from the TradFi capital market side. If I had to guess, I think that's probably how that next billion user thing will shake out.